The demon had been appearing every 17 years for as long as anyone could remember. It always came at the same time of year, in the dead of winter, when the nights were long and cold and the trees were bare and skeletal against the dark sky. People in the small town of Maplewood whispered about the demon in hushed tones, telling stories of how it would snatch children from their beds at night and drag them screaming into the woods, never to be seen again. No one knew where the demon came from or what it wanted, but everyone knew that it was powerful and malevolent, and that it was to be feared above all else. As the 17th year approached, the people of Maplewood grew increasingly nervous. They boarded up their windows, locked their doors, and huddled together in their homes, hoping to ride out the demon's visit unscathed. But as the night of the demon's arrival drew near, strange things began to happen. The skies grew dark and ominous, and a thick fog settled over the town, obscuring everything in sight. The wind howled through the streets, rattling doors and windows, and the trees groaned and creaked as though in agony. It was as though the very earth itself was convulsing with fear and anticipation. And then, as the clock struck midnight, the demon appeared. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. It was a towering, hulking mass of writhing black tentacles with glowing red eyes that burned like embers in the darkness. As it moved through the town, the very ground trembled beneath its massive bulk, and the air grew thick with the stench of decay and corruption. The demon moved with a purpose, its tentacles slithering and wriggling as it sought out its prey. It was a creature of pure malevolence, and it took pleasure in causing pain and suffering. The people of Maplewood tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless against the demon's massive form. It seemed invulnerable to harm, and it laughed cruelly as it tore through the town, snatching up its victims and dragging them into the darkness. It was a night of horror and madness, a night that would be forever etched in the memories of those who survived. And when the demon had finished its rampage, it vanished into the night, leaving behind a town in ruins and a population decimated by fear and loss. For 17 long years, the people of Maplewood lived in fear of the demon's return. They erected statues and monuments to the victims, and they held ceremonies and rituals to try to appease the demon and keep it at bay. But nothing could stop its inexorable march towards the next cycle. And as the 17th year drew near once again, the people of Maplewood knew that their time was running out. They huddled together in their homes, clutching their loved ones close and praying for mercy, but deep down they knew that there would be no reprieve. And then, just as before, the demon appeared. It was even more terrible than before, if that were possible. Its form had grown larger and more monstrous, and its eyes burned with an even greater intensity than before. The people of Maplewood tried to fight back, but their efforts were futile. The demon was too powerful, too malevolent, too unstoppable. And so, as the night wore on and the demon continued its rampage, the people of Maplewood began to resign themselves to their fate. They knew that they were doomed, that they would never be able to overcome the demon's power. And so they waited, huddled together in their homes, waiting for the end to come. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the demon vanished into the night, leaving behind a trail of destruction and death. But this time, something was different. One of the survivors, a young girl named Emily, had managed to catch a glimpse of the demon's true form. She had seen it briefly, when it had snatched up her little brother and disappeared into the woods. She had followed it, stumbling through the darkness until she came upon a clearing. There, in the center of the clearing, she had seen the demon's true form. It was not a monster made of tentacles and shadow, but a human-like figure with skin as black as coal and eyes that glowed with a sickly green light. And as she watched, the demon began to change. Its skin rippled and writhed, and it transformed into a familiar face. It was her father. Emily was stunned, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. Her father had died years ago, in a car accident. How could he be here, as the demon that had terrorized her town for generations? But as she watched, the demon spoke to her. Its voice was deep and resonant, and it seemed to emanate from every corner of the clearing. "Emily," it said, "I am not your father, but I am a demon, one that has been bound to this place for centuries. And now, with your town destroyed and your people dead, I am finally free." Emily didn't understand. "Free?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I have been trapped here, bound by an ancient curse. Every 17 years, I am summoned to this place, to wreak havoc and destruction upon the people of Maplewood. But now, with no one left to summon me, I am finally free to leave this place and explore the world." Emily didn't know what to say. She had always thought of demons as evil creatures, but this one seemed different. It had a purpose, a reason for its actions. "And what about my brother?" she asked. "What did you do with him?" The demon smiled, a twisted, malevolent grin. "Your brother is safe. For now. But he is not here. He is with me, in my world. And he will be there for a very long time." Emily was horrified. "What do you mean? What are you going to do with him?" The demon chuckled. "Oh, don't worry. He will be well taken care of. But you, Emily, you have a choice. You can stay here, in this ruined town, or you can come with me. I can show you wonders you have never imagined, worlds beyond your wildest dreams." Emily hesitated. She knew that the demon was dangerous, that it had killed so many of her friends and family. But she couldn't help feeling curious, intrigued by the prospect of exploring new worlds. And so, after a moment's thought, she made her decision. She took the demon's outstretched hand, and together they vanished into the night, leaving behind a town of ruins and death. For years, Emily traveled with the demon, exploring strange new worlds and experiencing things she had never thought possible. And although she never forgot the horror of that fateful night in Maplewood, she couldn't help feeling grateful to the demon for showing her a new way of life. But as the years went on, Emily began to realize that the demon was not the benevolent creature she had thought. It had a dark side, a hunger for power and domination that could not be sated. And so, after many long years of traveling, Emily made her decision. She left the demon's side, venturing out on her own, determined to find a way to stop the demon once and for all. It was a difficult journey, fraught with danger and uncertainty. Emily traveled to distant lands, seeking out powerful magic and ancient knowledge. She studied with powerful sorcerers, learning spells and incantations that would help her in her quest. At last, she came upon a book of ancient lore that spoke of a way to bind the demon once and for all. It required a powerful sacrifice, one that Emily was not sure she was willing to make. But she knew that it was the only way to save her brother and to stop the demon from causing more harm in the world. And so, with a heavy heart, she began the preparations. It took many long months to gather the ingredients and prepare the ritual. Emily traveled back to Maplewood, the place where her journey had begun so many years ago. She found the spot where the demon had first appeared, and she began to prepare the circle. As she worked, she thought about all the people who had died because of the demon's actions. She thought about her brother, trapped in the demon's world. And she thought about the demon itself, a creature born of ancient magic and bound to a cycle of destruction. At last, the ritual was ready. Emily stood at the center of the circle, holding the book of lore in her hands. She began to chant the words of the incantation, calling upon the power of the ancient gods to aid her in her quest. The air began to shimmer and glow, and the ground beneath her feet shook with the power of the magic. Emily felt a surge of energy coursing through her veins, and she knew that the spell was working. And then, in a burst of flame and smoke, the demon appeared before her. It was as terrible and fearsome as ever, with eyes that burned like coals and teeth like razor blades. But Emily was not afraid. She stood her ground, holding the book of lore out in front of her. "Demon," she said, "I call upon the power of the gods to bind you to this place. I offer myself as a sacrifice, that your power may be contained and your cycle of destruction ended." The demon laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "You offer yourself as a sacrifice," it said. "You are but a mere mortal, weak and insignificant. You cannot hope to contain my power." But Emily stood firm. She continued to chant the incantation, drawing upon the power of the gods to strengthen her resolve. And then, in a burst of blinding light, the demon was consumed. Its form twisted and writhed, and then it was gone, vanished into the ether. Emily collapsed to the ground, exhausted but triumphant. She had done it. She had stopped the demon once and for all. In the years that followed, Emily lived a quiet life. She returned to Maplewood, helping to rebuild the town and supporting the survivors of the demon's rampage. She never forgot the horrors she had witnessed, but she was proud of what she had accomplished. And although she never forgot the demon, she knew that she had done the right thing. She had stopped a creature of chaos and destruction, and in doing so, she had saved countless lives. But deep down, she knew that there would always be other demons, other creatures of darkness and destruction. And she knew that she would always be ready to face them, no matter the cost. For she was Emily, the slayer of demons, and she would always be ready for whatever came her way.